The sea isn't a place but a fact and a mystery. Flipped and marked presents the lost city of Dwarka. None might know what mystery the sea has in hold for one in its depth. We know that so much of human's history is seeped deep down in the oceans. India is one of the very few countries striving to find out the evidence hidden in the seas. Marine archaeologists are embarked on discovering the sunken cities. Over years, the eminent Professor S.R. Rao and his team involved themselves in the quest of unearthing the lost chapters in the history of a city, Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna. Professor Rao had been in the Archaeological Survey of India for around 32 years. Professor Rao says,
"Submerged cities and sunken ships are great treasure houses of our cultural heritage, which must be preserved. To this end, marine archaeologists undertake excavation of sunken ships and submerged cities. India, with its 5,000-year history of maritime trade, has played a vital role in dockyard construction and shipbuilding. For instance, the first tidal dock of the world was built at Lothal on the west coast of India by the Harappans in 2300 BC. The sea, which is a great source of wealth, can also be a source of danger. Thousands of ships have sunk in storms, and several flourishing ports have disappeared as a result of the rising sea. India is one of the very few countries in the world which has set up a marine archaeology center for excavating sunken ships and submerged ports. The center at the National Institute of Oceanography has given high priority for exploration of Dwarka, which is said to have been founded by Lord Krishna, whose colorful personality has permeated the fabric of Indian social and cultural life.
This is Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. The divine child was exchanged for a baby girl, and he was brought across river Yamuna to Gokulam. The illustration shows Krishna stealing butter with his friends. This is him killing the Demoness Putana. He is a disciple of sage Santipani. He spotted with the beautiful damsels Gopis. He killed the ferocious bull demon. The people of Gokulam, the Yadva clan, lived happily together. But the troubles didn't leave even Krishna's Gokulam. According to the legend, Lord Krishna killed his uncle Kamsa for being a nefarious and cruel ruler of Mahatha. This infuriated Kamsa's father-in-law Jarasandha as he saw his two daughters standing widowed, and he decided to seek revenge on Krishna. Jarasandha attacked Krishna's kingdom 17 times in a lengthy war. When Jarasandha attacked for the 18th time, Lord Krishna decided to leave Mathura and establish a safe new kingdom for his people. The site for the new city was chosen by Garuda, Lord Vishnu's mount. Lord Krishna prayed to Samudradev, who granted 12 yojanas of land, that is 96 square kilometers. The powerful city was built on an island not far from the present-day shore of India. The magnificent city was then built by Sri Vishwakarma, the divine architect and builder. It had been mentioned that no other place of such splendor or magnificence has been built by Vishwakarma before. The place was called Dwarka, the gate to heaven. Mahabharata says that Dwarka had 900,000 royal palaces, all constructed with gold and silver and were decorated with emeralds. Dwarka was a fortified city with massive gates, excellent roads, gardens and drainage systems. It was a home to many beautiful temples, gardens and artificial lakes. It was extremely well protected, and one could only reach it by boat. Moreover, it was well planned. The city is said to have been divided into 6 distinct sectors, each of which served a particular purpose. One sector was built solely for the city residents, another sector was built for commercial purposes, and another one for temples. The city is today situated in the west coast of India in Jamnagar district of Gujarat. It is a house of many temples. Pilgrims flock the city, and the famous Dwarkadhish temple has been a great source of attraction. Archaeological findings suggest it to be 2000 to 2200 years old. According to the legend, the original temple was believed to have been built by Krishna's great-grandson, Vajranabha. The original structure was destroyed by Mahmud Begada, Sultan of Gujarat in 1472, and it was subsequently rebuilt in the 15th or 16th century. But was it really Krishna's Dwarka? The question puzzled almost everyone with no solid evidence. Years back, archaeologists discovered a submerged kingdom off the coast of the town of Dwarka in Gujarat. And whatever has been traced so far conforms to the description of Dwarka in the Mahabharata to a large extent. The expedition has begun as early as 1930, and the first archaeological excavation took place in 1963. It was done by the Deccan College Pune and Department of Archaeology, Government of Gujarat under the direction of H.D. Sankalia. It revealed artifacts many centuries old. The second round of excavation was done by Marine Archaeological Unit of the Archaeological Survey of India in 1979 under the supervision of Dr. S.R. Rao. It is notable to be mentioned that he was also involved in the excavations of Harappan sites including the port city of Lothal in Gujarat. When he found things that are to be more than 3000 years old, the serious search for the sunken city in the Arabian Sea began in 1981.
What actually prompted me to undertake onshore and offshore excavation at Dwarka is the controversy that was raging about the date and historicity of Mahabharata. The Deccan College, Pune, excavated in 1963 Dwarka and came to the conclusion that it was the Dwarka of Mahabharata period. But Dr. Sankalia expressed the opinion that the first settlement at Dwarka could not have been earlier than the 1st century AD or BC. This, of course, was contrary to all established facts of history because Mahabharata war and the founding of Dwarka cannot be post-Mauryan events. When I demolished a modern building, some temple of Vishnu of 9th century came to light below the building. This prompted me to take further deeper excavation, and ultimately I came across a 15th century BC settlement.
Here, the sea has offered a thrilling glimpses of the past. At the lowest level, there is a clear evidence that the cold water had closed over an ancient human settlement. A distinct red pottery known as Lustran red ware is found here. At Prabhasa, another Mahabharata site, this pottery has been dated back to about 1500 BC. So, the inference is obvious that once there existed a city Dwarka around the same period, with a sea annexed with it later. As time passes, the sea level rises and mercilessly extends its empire. The chart shows the rise of sea all over the world including America. The sea water rises to about 60 meters in 10,000 years. When Dwarka was founded, the sea stood 10 meters lower than it does today. The chart led to another site, Bet Dwarka, which lies about 30 kilometers from the present Dwarka. Bet Dwarka is also associated with Lord Krishna. This island is considered as holy as Dwarka itself. This was once connected with the mainland. The eastern shore disclosed remains of the proto-historic period. The ancient fortification had spanned more than half a kilometer. The remains of the ancient city were found at the northern end. Clearly, the onshore excavation proved rewarding. Numerous shells were found. Pottery of proto-historic period was also found here. A massive fortification wall about 550 meters in diameter came into view. It remains submerged all the time except in the extremely low tides. Successive layers of masonry appeared confirming that to be a man-made structure. Box technique was employed there proving Dwarka to be a fortified. They found the place to be replete with conch shells. Evidently, shell fishing was an important industry. Excavation here also yielded a variety of artifacts like bangles, vessels and seals. Underwater excavation was also very rewarding. They found significant antiquities like lustrous red ware, seals, inscribed jars and stern blades. There has survived a special type of vessel known as perforated jar. This is associated with the late Harappan civilization. Other interesting articles were also found there. The inscription on the jar was in late Harappan script, Mahagachasha Abha. It means "Sea Lord protect us." Here are some other artifacts: coppersmith's molds, charked blades, bangles of shells, vessels, seals and inlays. The excavation in the sea also gave this unique seal. 18 by 20 millimeters. It is made of shell. Look at the three animals in the anti-clockwise direction. They are a bull, a unicorn and a goat. They resemble the animals on the seals in Bahrain. Excavation under the sea is a hard task. Excavation is possible only between November and February, during low tide. The sea has to be smooth and there should be bright sunshine. All these requirements effectively reduced the number of diving days to 40 to 45 in one season. It has also been said that the team would dive at least 45 times a day. Divers used echo sounder and sonar to get a fairly accurate idea of the location and the depth of the object underwater. Initially, the expedition was limited to only around 1 kilometer. The first Indian Conference on Marine Archaeology of Indian Ocean countries met at Jamnagar in October 1987. Many eminent personalities from all over the world participated. The expert work that had been commenced at the ancient site Dwarka was commended. After the conference was over, Professor Rao returned to the work site with doubled zeal. Another notable finding is that the perforated anchors. These are almost identical to the anchors found in Cyprus and Syria, which go back to 1400 to 1200 BC. Wooden stakes are fixed at these holes, and thus a firm grip is secured in the seabed. This shows evidently there had been a trade link between India, Cyprus and Syria even in 2nd millennium BC.
What actually prompted me to undertake onshore and offshore excavation at Dwarka is the controversy that was raging about the date and historicity of Mahabharata. The Deccan College, Pune, excavated in 1963 Dwarka and came to the conclusion that it was the Dwarka of Mahabharata period. But Dr. Sankalia expressed the opinion that the first settlement at Dwarka could not have been earlier than the 1st century AD or BC. This, of course, was contrary to all established facts of history, because Mahabharata war and the founding of Dwarka cannot be post-Mauryan events.
S.R. Rao's team came across some enthralling discoveries that cemented the existence of a submerged city. But the most definitive findings were found in 2001 by accident by a group of students at the Gulf of Cambay. They were sent by India's National Institute of Ocean Technology to conduct a survey of pollution in Gulf of Khambat, 7 miles from the shore. Some 36 feet below sea level they found sandstone walls, grids of streets, copper coins, pottery, beads, sculpture, human bones and teeth. Carbon dating on debris recovered from the site put it at nearly 9,500 years old, making it older than the Chinese, Harappan, Egyptian and Mesopotamian civilizations by several thousand years. The Indian mythology is replete with accounts of how the original Dwarka looked like. Whatever has been found so far agrees with the city Dwarka referred to in the Mahabharata, Harivansa, Matsya and Vayu Puranas. When asked as to how sure he was that this was Krishna's Dwarka, Rao had replied, "Only the name board is missing." Marine archaeological explorations have thrown light on a number of structures of different shapes and artifacts. All the evidences points to the fact of the existence of a city around 2nd millennium BC. Similarly, a large number of stone anchors were found. It is indicative of being one of the busiest ports during the past on the west coast of India. The layout of the excavated city, the spread and the location of fort walls and bastions match the descriptions mentioned in Harivamsa, a prologue to Mahabharata. Another crucial evidence is provided by mudra or the seal found. Harivamsa details the security arrangements in the legendary Dwarka. It says that there were seals, without which one could not enter the city. A stone image of Vishnu, church blades and pottery are all part of the recovered objects. Certain coins were found during excavations underwater having inscriptions similar to details found in Mahabharata. According to research, a catastrophe swallowed the city whole approximately 3,500 years ago, therefore sinking it to the bottom of the ocean. Archaeologists gave 3 possible reasons for its destruction. 1. Shift in the level of seabed. 2. Massive earthquake. And 3. Sudden increase in the level of seawater. It was revealed that given the condition in which buildings were discovered, it couldn't have been a tsunami or earthquake. In the case of the rise of sea level, it is possible since a similar phenomenon had occurred in Bahrain at the same time. This is supported by the fact that there was a busy network of trade between the coastal town of Lothal, near Dwarka, and Bahrain. The submergence of Dwarka was given in many ancient texts. Mausala Parva of the Mahabharata describes the catastrophic event as follows. The sea, which had been beating against the shores, suddenly broke the boundary that was imposed on it by nature. The sea rushed into the city. It coursed through the streets of the beautiful city. The sea covered up everything in the city. I saw the beautiful buildings becoming submerged one by one. In a matter of a few moments, it was all over. The sea had now become as placid as a lake. There was no trace of the city. Dwarka was just a name, just a memory. And according to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, 11th canto, Krishna sends a message to the people of Dwarka. He tells them that people should not remain in Dwarka because once he had abandoned that city it will be inundated by the ocean. Hence, he asked the 56 crore Yaduvamsis to leave Dwarka. Let's see the detailed story. On the 18th day, when the battle came to an end, Krishna visited Gandhari to seek her blessings before he could leave for his kingdom Dwarka. She however was not in a very merciful mood. Gandhari wailed over Krishna for not avoiding the war. She cursed that he would feel the same pain as she felt over losing her 100 sons. She condemned the end of the entire Yadava clan right in front of his eyes. Days flew by. After the coronation of Yudhishthira as the king of Hastinapuram, Krishna went back to Dwarka. The curse materialized 36 years after the war. Enjoying every bliss, Yadava failed to remember the good conduct, morals and the importance of good discipline and humility. Thus, Yadava sealed their destiny. The people who once esteemed the great sages like Vishwamitra, Vashistha, Durvasa, who were visiting Lord Krishna and Balarama, failed to respect them. A group of Yadava boys decided to play a prank on the sages in order to test their power. They dressed Samba, the son of Krishna, and Jambavati as a pregnant woman. They approached the sages and asked them to predict if the person is bearing girl or the boy. The rishis realized the truth through their vision and became enraged. In anger, the sages cursed them, saying that the disguised boy will give birth to a lump of iron which will destroy the entire Yadava clan. The Yadavas left the scene, laughing of the curse. But next morning Sambha developed labor pains and soon delivered a mace from within him. The Yadavas were now struck with fear. They immediately rushed with the mace to Akrura and Vukrasena and narrated the weird tide of events. Akrura immediately ordered the mace to be grounded to powder and to be cast into the seas. The Yadavas obeyed his commands to the dot. They had ground the mace finely. Everything was ground except a sharp triangular piece which appeared to be very hard indeed. And then they had thrown the fine powder and the lone piece into the sea. Happy that they had taken care of the matter so easily, they returned back to their general state of intoxication and bliss. Time rolled by. The triangular piece of the mace was swallowed by a fish. The fish was caught by a fisherman, who upon finding the piece in the fish's entrails sold it to a hunter named Jara, who immediately used it to craft a fine poisonous arrow. The fine powder, on the other hand, washed back ashore and deposited itself by the beautiful coast of Dwarka. A certain grass grew in lush abundance in the area where the powder was deposited. Everything was set for the final showdown. One day, Yadavas came to seashore for enjoyment and drank and enjoyed. Two people, Satyaki and Kritavarma, acted as the starting points of the doom of Dwarka. Satyaki had fought on Pandava's side in the battle of Kurukshetra and Kritavarma on the Kaurava side. They taunted one another, bringing back memories of the horrific war. In a fit of rage, Satyaki jumped on Kritavarma and cut his head off. The friends of Kritavarma pounced on Satyaki and a great brawl followed. As they have come to the seashore for a pleasure, they did not carry any weapons along with them. They saw the long-grown grass in abundance along the seashore. They picked up the grass stems and beat and killed each other. Those grass stems are nothing but blades made of the powder of the same lump of iron bound to sambar. Thus, the curse of saints fructified. It was a matter of moments before the Yadavas lay dead, killed by their own clan members. Krishna's charioteer Dharuka and another one called Babru only survived. They both approached Sri Krishna and narrated the incident. Krishna told Dharuka to immediately go to Hastinapuram and inform Dharmaja about the massacre of Yadavas and bring Arjuna there. Accordingly, Dharuka rushed towards Hastinapuram in a chariot. Krishna went to the place where Balarama was and found him meditating. A long serpent came out of the face of Balarama. Balarama left this mortal body. His soul travelled into the sky through the sea. As Balarama was the incarnation of Adhisesha, Balarama attained Vishnu Loka and joined Vishnu. Krishna saw Balarama putting an end to his incarnation. Krishna thought that time has come for him to leave this world and go back to his original abode. Krishna started thinking about the ways and means to leave this body. He remembered the words of Rishi Dhurvasa. Once, as per the wish of Saint Dhurvasa, Krishna applied payasam throughout his body. As sage's legs were resting on ground, Krishna could not apply it to his feet. Dhurvasa observed it and condemned Krishna on not having applied payasam to his foot and cursed Krishna that his death would be in his foot. Krishna lay down under a tree and went into yoga samadhi near Bakatirtha. At that time the hunter Jara entered that forest. That hunter misunderstood the moving foot of Krishna as a lurking deer and shot a lethal arrow that pierced into Krishna's feet. As soon as the hunter reached Krishna, he realized his mistake and pleaded the Lord for forgiveness. Lord Krishna consoled him. Krishna said that in his previous birth as Rama in the Treta Yuga, Rama killed Vali, Sugriva's brother, from behind. So, Krishna has now reaped the price for the same through Jara, who was the king Vali in his previous birth. Lord Krishna left the mortal world. It marked the end of Dwapar Yuga and the beginning of Kali Yuga. Dharuka, sent by Sri Krishna, met Pandavas and informed them about the tragic deaths. On hearing this, Pandavas plunged into great grief. After taking suitable instructions from Dharmaja, Arjuna reached Dwarka. It took 7 days for Arjuna to enter into Dwarka. The wives of Krishna and Balarama pounced into fire and died with them. Arjuna performed the last rites for Krishna and his kinsmen. Arjuna took the rest of the living people towards Indraprastha. As the people walked away from the Dwarka city, the city sank into the sea. On the way, some thieves saw that only one man with a bow accompanied the ladies. They tried to rob them. Arjuna, who was once a very great archer, found it very difficult to even lift his bow. When he tried to invoke his Divya Astras, he forgot all those incantations. The thieves killed many people and kidnapped the women. Some of the ladies fell into the nearby river and gave up their lives. Some burnt themselves alive. Thus, The last of all curse of Gandhari and sages were all materialized, and the entire Yadava clan were doomed. Until the unearthing of Dwarka, archaeologists believed civilization in India dated back to 3000 to 6000 years. But findings from the sunken bed of the Gulf of Cambay push this age back to 9000 to 15,000 years ago, millenniums before the birth of Christ. It is indeed surprising that archaeologists and historians have taken little notice of the findings at Dwarka. In its early days, the project received UNESCO support and several foreign marine archaeologists also offered help. However, the government's indifference to the project has kept them away. Unlike several other land excavations, the underwater excavations can be done only with total government help. Several levels of permissions are needed. While land excavations are demanding in labor, the underwater explorations need machinery and equipment. Skillful divers who are trained to look for meaningful objects are required too. K.R. Rao submitted a proposal to the Ministry of Culture in January 2000 that aimed at preserving the underwater cultural heritage of India Dwarka and also promoting it as a pilgrimage tourism center. His proposal was to cost 14 crores rupees. The then government didn't offer any help. The interest in excavating Dwarka has waned over the years. For this reason, the secrets of the underwater city have not been fully explored or understood. The historical value of the site is beyond comprehension. What we've found so far, some 40 meters beneath the surface, suggests that the city that is now located beneath the surface was home to a prosperous, advanced society more than 9,000 years ago. Hence, it is imperial that these such places should get the attention they deserve. Here are the pictures of few of the findings. Our world is filled with places that walk the fine line between myth and reality. If you have enjoyed the video, give it a like, share it with your friends and hit the subscribe button to join us in Flipped and Ma.